Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has extended the deadline for Chinese firm ByteDance to sell TikTok's U.S. operations by a further 75 days. Let's talk to somebody who's tracked this story very closely from its beginning. Jim Anderson is Chief Executive Officer of Beacon Software. Jim, thanks a lot for joining us. This story obviously has been overshadowed by the tariff story. Does it fit into the tariff story? However, the U.S. and China are now angrily throwing tariffs at one another. Where does ByteDance fit into this?
Yeah, Paul, it's kind of crazy to think that TikTok, as popular as it is, one of the most valuable social networks in the world, companies like Amazon, Oracle desperately would love to have a piece of it, but it's a pawn on the chessboard of the larger U.S.-China relationships. A very important pawn, maybe, if there is such a thing. But clearly, there was a deal about to be done. It was going to be done by last Saturday, but the tariffs just threw that up in the air. And of course, the Chinese government has to sign off on any deal, and they're not going to sign off in the middle of these kinds of tariff negotiations. So hence another 75-day extension, probably not the last of the 75-day extensions.
What was the nature of that deal? Tell us about it.
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of reporting on it. There was not anything definitive. The deal was not awarded, but Oracle was widely reported to be in the lead. Amazon wanted a piece of that. And again, these big tech companies, they see this not just as a massively popular application, especially with young people, but a source of AI training material. Remember, the world is headed towards artificial intelligence. If you could get your hands on the data associated with TikTok, train your algorithms accordingly, that's long and the short of why companies like Oracle and Amazon are so interested in that.
Where do Apple and Alphabet fit into this?
Yeah, Apple and Alphabet, of course, they both run the app stores, right? Apple runs the iPhone app store. Alphabet runs the Android app store. They're the ones that are actually the enforcement mechanism. The law banning TikTok in the U.S. requires the owners of app stores, and for all intents and purposes, it's just those two companies, to basically take them out of the app store. Then the U.S. Justice Department came in and said, well, you don't really have to follow that law. And at least seemingly for now, both Apple and Alphabet are content to follow that guidance. But they could decide that the politics might change on this. I mean, they are actively failing to enforce what's required by U.S. law under the guidance of the U.S. Justice Department. What happens moving forward and whether they continue to be comfortable not enforcing that law is an interesting question, because they have to think not just about this administration, but the next administration that might come in that might not look so favorably on the fact that those two companies have not been enforcing the law.
You referred to TikTok as the most profitable social media platform. How much do we know about its financials and its financial performance?
Well, we know very little because it's a private company and it's owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese-owned company. So there's not a lot of transparency there in terms of TikTok-specific financials. It's just a division of ByteDance. We just know that they've got 170 million U.S. users. That's U.S. alone. They're a massively popular global platform. And, of course, they're advertising supported. And what do advertisers most covet? Young people. And what's the most popular social app among young people? It's TikTok. So, you could say it's one of the most valuable applications in the world, right? And not just today, but for where it goes moving forward. So it is massively important. But again, in the context of global tariffs and potential trade war, just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
How is it fundamentally different than other video apps? YouTube has been around for a long, long time, and there are other video-oriented apps as well. Why did TikTok prove to be such a game changer?
It's the algorithm, right? That's the secret sauce, and that's what really has been at the heart of these debates. Do you get control of the algorithm? And for all intents and purposes, the Chinese government is not going to let a U.S. company have control of the algorithm. It's massively valuable. We don't know exactly what they did, but they've done something. If you've ever used TikTok and you go on and you start scrolling, all of these apps, social and video and otherwise, their goal is to capture your attention, right? The longer they can keep you scrolling on your phone, looking at that, the more they have the opportunity to monetize that attention. And TikTok has done that better than anyone else. And people just sort of know it and they see it and they feel it, but they don't know how they do it. And that's the secret sauce behind TikTok's success.
And the concern is, of course, that under Chinese ownership, the app would become a tool of Chinese surveillance or spying on the U.S. population. Are those concerns legitimate in your opinion?
They are. And not only could that be the case, it might have already been the case. We would have no way of knowing. That's what led to such bipartisan support for the ban to begin with. Remember, Congress, which is remarkably fractious in the U.S. right now, agreed and on a bipartisan basis to pass this ban because of concerns about what the Chinese government might do. And of course, everybody's insisting the Chinese government has not done that. Maybe they haven't, maybe they have, but the concerns are there just like they were when the law was passed, right? At any moment, if the Chinese government goes to ByteDance and says, we want you to do this, it's not really a request. ByteDance has almost no choice but to adhere to the wishes, accede to the wishes of the Chinese government. And, that presents a remarkable risk when you've got 170 million Americans spending close to an hour a day on an app. If they put their thumbs on the scale of what those people are seeing in whatever way they choose to do it, I mean, that's a legitimate concern.
Jim, thank you very much for your insight on this story. Jim Anderson is Chief Executive Officer